Some kings are remembered for their victories, some for wisdom. Athelred, however, is remembered for everything he tried and failed to stop. His reign was marked by disaster, betrayal, and Viking terror, so much so that his nickname, the Unready, has echoed for 1,000 years. But the story of Athelred isn't just one of failure. It's a tragedy of inheritance, ambition, and the impossible weight of the crown. Athelred was born around 968, the son of King Edgar the Peaceful and his ambitious second wife, Queen Æthelred. When his older half-brother Edward the Martyr was murdered in 978, Athelred, barely 10 years old, inherited the English throne. Already, his crown was tainted by blood. Rumors swirled that his mother had orchestrated Edward's death to place her own son on the throne. Whether true or not, this suspicion followed Athelred for the rest of his reign. Imagine a boy king thrust into a fractured kingdom. Noble factions were divided. The church had supported Edward and his reforms, while many secular lords saw Athelred as a puppet, a weak king they could control. England, long united under Alfred, Athelstan, and Edgar, now faced internal division at exactly the moment it needed unity most. And then came the Vikings. By the time Athelred was crowned, England's coastlines were under constant threat. Viking raiders, long a scourge of Alfred and Athelstan, had returned with new ferocity. The Danes struck mercilessly, towns were burned, monasteries looted, and nobles slaughtered. Athelred was expected to respond, but his youth and the divided loyalties of his nobles left him powerless. It's here that Athelred earned his infamous nickname. Unready isn't a reflection of his personal incompetence, but rather an Old English word, unraid, meaning bad counsel. And Athelred, surrounded by greedy advisors, quarreling nobles, and opportunistic bishops, had little good counsel to rely on. Decisions made in his name often backfired. One of his earliest strategies was the infamous Danegeld. Time and again, Athelred tried to buy the Vikings off, paying enormous sums of silver to promise their departure. But the payments only emboldened the raiders. They returned, stronger and more daring, demanding more tribute, and leaving England poorer and more exposed with each invasion. In 1002, Athelred made a desperate and fateful move. He ordered the St. Brice's Day Massacre, a systematic slaughter of Danes living in England. It was meant to end Viking influence once and for all. Instead, it provoked outrage. Among the dead was the sister of Sweyn Forkbeard, the powerful king of Denmark. From that moment, England's destiny was changed. Ethelred's reign became a lightning rod for vengeance. The following years were a nightmare. Viking fleets ravaged the south and east of England. London itself was besieged. Athelred repeatedly fled the capital, first to Wessex, then across the Channel to Normandy. Each retreat undermined his authority. His nobles lost faith, monasteries were sacked, and towns lived in terror. England had never known such chaos in peacetime. Even attempts to reform the kingdom failed. Athelred tried to regulate markets, standardize taxes, and assert royal law, echoing the achievements of Edgar the Peaceful. But in a time of near-constant invasion, these efforts barely registered. The kingdom was a house under siege, and no system could keep it standing. Yet Athelred was not without his moments of courage. He rallied loyalists, tried to repel Viking attacks, and even coordinated counter-raids when possible. But by now, the odds were stacked against him. The Vikings had allies among disaffected English nobles, Danish settlers, and mercenary forces. Every victory was fleeting, every setback devastating. In 1013, the inevitable happened. Sweyn Forkbeard, angered by the St. Brice's Day massacre and backed by a massive fleet, launched a full-scale invasion. Athelred fled into exile in Normandy. Sweyn was crowned king of England, the first Viking to hold the throne. Ethelred's brief restoration after Sweyn's sudden death in 1014 did little to restore confidence or stability. He died in 1016, his kingdom shattered, his reputation irreparably damaged. History has been unforgiving. Athelred the Unready is remembered as weak, indecisive, and unlucky. But his story is more complex than that. He inherited a fractured kingdom, faced near constant foreign threat, and struggled to balance competing loyalties. His failures were not entirely personal. They were the product of circumstance, betrayal, and the relentless force of history bearing down on one man. And yet, Ethelred's reign also serves as a warning. It shows how fragile kingdoms are, how quickly internal divisions can be exploited, and how even the crown itself can become a target of bloodshed. The boy who survived his brother's murder, who carried a heavy and bloody inheritance, could not have succeeded without the loyalty of the nobles, good counsel, or luck, all of which he lacked. So when we think of Athelred, we should remember not only the failures, but the impossible position he was placed in. He was a king under siege, a boy on a throne too heavy for his shoulders, a ruler who faced a storm no crown could weather. Next, we'll meet the man who seized that opportunity and became the first Viking king of England, Sweyn Forkbeard. His story is one of conquest, revenge, and the transformation of a nation.